That attitude is immediately evident to people that they're talking to when they talk in the manner that they talk, if they are arrogant intellectuals of that sort. You see that in The Simpsons did a good job of that with Comic Book Guy.
I want to present an argument, if that's okay with you guys. See, I languish, you know, my life, it's a tragedy.
Oh, loneliness and cheeseburgers are a dangerous mix.
Completely useless in every possible dimension with an IQ of about 160.
Whereas a moral anti-realist is of the opinion that there's no such thing as an epistemically objective morality, but they're objectively right or wrong in the framework of an intersubjective set of moral principles.
It's very annoying to people who have an IQ of 160 that they can also be completely useless, but it happens a lot.
Then how would you even convince people who disagreed with you? If they had different axioms, if they had different first principles, how could you ever change their mind? And I said you couldn't. You'd have to kill them.
I mean, it's not like he wasn't also a conscious manipulator and surrounded himself by people who were propagandists and all of that. So there was a conscious element, but he learned how to appeal to the darkest fantasies of the crowd.
Where Dell was saying, essentially, not that I endorse this perspective, of course, Dell was essentially saying that conservative politicians should fear for their life. What a horrible thing to say about people trying to take away others' fundamental human rights. I know, it's awful. If you could ever believe such a horrible thing being said or believed.
And that was a dialectic process, right? The crowd told him what they wanted to hear, and the crowd's a mob at that point. And so you start talking to them. You don't know what you're upset about, and neither does the crowd. So you start to articulate some things about why you might be upset. And some of them fall flat.
In fact, and this is going to be a real hot take, I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child should be illegal. Actual child.
So you stop saying those things.
So my position is that I am anti-child. I don't think it's a good thing to have it.
And some of the things make the crowd really wake up and listen. And so you start saying more of those things.
You know that whole joke I do with political violence is wrong, always wrong, never do it, not even in Minecraft, it's immoral to hurt people thing? And it's always with a wink and a nod, and everyone knows my real position. You guys know I do that, right?
I am personally not in favor of the idea of stochastic terrorism against, like, loggers or whatever. I don't think that's a particularly effective way of making the world a better place. Though I can't really blame the motive.
The only thing I think you could really do in such a system is to kill the people who disagree with you.
If you believe as I do, that Vaush can unironically be described as a postmodern neo-Marxist.
If you're going to say that, like, none of this exists, and you enter, like, postmodernism, you legit become, like, a postmodern neo-Marxist.
Then you will recognize it is not a coincidence that Vaush consistently finds ways to dig himself into an ever-deepening pit of narcissistic self-immolation. When you fill your head with stupid, abstract ideas of how the world works, and then you try to act out those ideas, you will inevitably pay for it one way or another.
Well, for example, you won't get away with deceiving yourself. You just can't. And the reason you can't is because you need a model of the world that's like the world. And if you try to live in a model of the world that isn't like the world, you'll just bump into the world. And so the deception brings with it its own punishment.
And a perfect example of Vaush's ideological self-deception bringing forth its own punishment is his recent doubling down on his exchange with one of the most successful authors alive on the planet today.
You see, there I was, innocently tweeting out misogynistic stuff on International Women's Day. All JK Rowling had to do was shut the F up. I see you, YouTube. And she would have been almost uncritically beloved for like a century. Women be quieter and start apologizing challenge. Phenomenal stuff. The joke here being, of course, that a common slogan for women's liberation is women be loud, stop apologizing, a sentiment which I agree with. In most cases, unless you're JK Rowling.
And instead of just admitting he made a mistake and moving on, his twisted ideology and narcissistic online persona work together to perform all kinds of mental gymnastics to explain why actually the people criticizing him for his tweets are bad people.
I'll just lay out my points right here, okay? I think that the people who are hand-wringing over this are borderline defending JK Rowling by implication. So the people who are fretting over this are essentially siding with the transphobe, either because their optics or civility politics brained in a very liberal fashion or because they hate me so much that they have to adopt any position which allows them to condemn me.
And because maintaining one lie requires the production of many other lies, Vaush seamlessly enters into the realm of armchair psychoanalysis, genuine conspiracy theorizing, and tribalistic fear-mongering.
JK Rowling doesn't care about misogyny. You can read her books. They're not exactly like super progressive. She doesn't care. She cares about trans people and oppressing them. That's the thing she cares about. And this whole TERF movement is really just a conservative psyop with a very small minority of second-wave feminists being signal boosted by conservative media. When JK Rowling says something transphobic and gets retweeted, signal boosted, has videos made about them, it's from conservatives. People who are often fascists. I mean, a lot of these people think women should be barefoot and pregnant. JK Rowling doesn't denounce the support because JK Rowling doesn't care that it's coming from them. She cares about support for her transphobia. So if you're seriously out here wringing your hands over how, well, Vaush is giving them ammunition for their arguments by being... No, you're falling for it. You're falling for the framework they're constructing. The framework they're constructing is one in which they attempt to convince people that misogyny is the thing they actually care about. It's not, and they don't. So don't fall for the bait.
It's incredible how far an ideologue will go in mistaking their personal failings for the malicious ploys of their enemies. Right? You can't criticize Vaush because doing so inadvertently takes away criticism from the transphobic neo-fascist like the woman who retroactively turned Dumbledore gay, which is, I'm sure, exactly what Joseph Goebbels and crew wanted. It's so ridiculous that even the people who largely share Vaush's ideological framework can see through the BS.
2 hours ago, ContraPoints blocked me on Twitter. The bridge is burnt, I'm afraid. Tragic. Now, like I said last night while streaming, if the bridge is to be burnt, it's not going to be from me. It would be from her, which is what happened.
Now, when I started this YouTube channel, I told myself I didn't want to just make videos about people who make videos, right? It just becomes a hyper-reality thing, and maybe this is nothing more than that. But I know people who have and had very fucked up worldviews. I know people that thought that everyone hated them, or I know people that thought that everyone liked them a lot more than they really did, or I knew people that thought that, well, the way to be happy is to just work out and get really big muscles or whatever. And time again, I've seen how that fails people. And with Vaush, I see him on a similar trajectory that I saw with a lot of people I knew. And social media provides a window in real time that allows us to kind of see, well, here are the psychological consequences of being ideologically possessed. Because it's not just, well, you know, JK Rowling is a neo-fascist or whatever. It's like, that's one form of ideological possession. But, you know, thinking that everyone hates you or everyone loves you, or working out is going to solve all your problems, or making a bunch of money, or having sex with a bunch of people, or becoming an all-time comic book collector is going to provide you happiness. All of those are forms of ideological possession. And all of them, one way or another, will lead to the same self-destructive outcome. And in my opinion, it's something that you should avoid.
You don't know anything about me.
Mr. Mommy and Daddy paid for your school. I promise you I know more than you about this, okay? So
then respond to the fucking arguments rather than characterizing what I have to say. The first and last month's rent deposit, the actual cost of moving, the opportunity cost of leaving your job. These are huge institutional barriers that you don't give a fuck about because you're so triggered by the left.
You cannot marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds. Oh, I've wasted my life.